All right. So once again, welcome to Happy Hour of Coaching Series. My name is Ashutosh, and today's topic is about building coaching capability. How, as coaches, we actually build our capability. That is what I will be talking about. Now, one thing I would like to talk about here upfront is I'm not going to talk about, okay, how, I might talk about that a little bit. I might touch about it that how do I promote myself from a scrum master to an agile coach or a project manager to an agile coach, right? I'm just generally going to talk about some of the key attributes, some of the key traits which are required for us to become coaches. Okay. And obviously, there are a lot of questions which I get also asked many times that can everyone in this world become a coach? Okay. Is the role of a coach permanent or is it temporary? So, especially when we talk about transformation, agile transformation, is the role a permanent role or it is maybe for only 6 months, 7 months? What after 6 months, 7 months? Who does the coaching, right? What is coaching, mentoring? Are they same? Right, I think that's an obvious question which all of us ask, right? What are the leadership styles which are required, right? Though I had a dedicated webinar on that. So if you go to my channel, there's a dedicated webinar on leadership styles for coaches. You can watch it. And what is the critical enablers? What are those critical enablers from a coaching point of us, coaching point of view, sorry, which will help you to become a coach, right? So those are broadly the topics which I'll be touching upon. I just have slides more as an anchoring material. I would be more interested after I cover my topic to understand from you, to get questions from you, to learn from your own experiences how this journey has been. And those of you who are on LinkedIn Live and Facebook, don't worry, you can ping me one-on-one later, and I'll be more than happy to answer these questions what are there. All right. So on that note, let us start with our session. Let us further start with our session, and let us try to understand how to build coaching capability. But before I go there, I just thought that I will share some interesting quotes around coaching. So one of a very interesting quote on coaching: a coach must never forget that he's a leader and not merely a person with authority. I think that clearly distinguishes between a coach and a normal people who say that they are leaders, right? So it's not about authority. It's about the coaching skills, what is important in today's world, right? And in fact, when we coach leadership teams, we also tell them that it's no longer about authority. It's no longer about the power which comes from the barrel of a gun, as the very famous Chinese general talked about, right? It's more about power which spreads through the teams. That is what is more important, right, in today's world, right? And why coaching is so important, why coaching is so relevant in today's world. I think leadership coaching needs, it definitely needs the kind of focus what is needed today. Because yes, you might coach your teams, you might coach your middle level, but what about leadership level? Are they imbibed? Have they been bought into the coaching way of working? I think that's a question which we need to answer as coaches, as transformation agents, as change agents. So I thought that let me start by having this interesting quote. Another interesting quote, I think you can recognize the personalities here. The only man who can save the match is the man sitting next to me. This is obviously of a match which India was losing very badly, where obviously this humorous anecdote from Harsha Bhogle came in the commentary, right? A very interesting one, right? And many times you see that, right? I mean, as coaches, we leave a team, right? We go to another team only to hear later on that, you know what, after you left, the team has actually gone back to its old habits. Right? They came out of the de-addiction center, but they have again gone back to smoking. I mean, I'm just giving an analogy here, right? Or the team has slid back to their old habits. Old habits die hard, as they say, right? And that's what this quote is exemplifying here, right? So something related more to, I would say, that the coach leaving. As a coach, you have to ensure that before you exit, you have mechanisms in place where the teams are not tempted to fall back to old ways of working. I think that's one of the critical responsibilities what you have. Otherwise, what will happen is you will end up leaving the team in a worse state than they were when you entered into a coaching engagement. So that's another learning which I wanted to share with you, right? Another interesting quote on it. And another interesting quote by John Wright, the ex-Indian coach. He goes on to say, I never coached Sachin Tendulkar, a great player like Sachin Tendulkar. I just gave him gentle advice when he asked for it. A very important and a very profound and a powerful statement, right? Many times we as coaches get into a habit of coaching without even taking the consent of the person, or without even understanding the fact that does this person really need to be coached, right? There could be multiple reasons. Do we really need to coach this person? Does this person need our coaching? And as coaches, we need to do that due diligence rather than jumping into the well and starting to coach each and every one person on the floor, right? You have to clearly identify which are the candidates which need coaching, which are the candidates which may not even need coaching at all, right? Or they need a slight nudge towards coaching, right? So there's always this classic I would say framework of low touch coaching, medium touch coaching, high touch coaching. So identify who all are the critical stakeholders in those three zones, right? Who requires a high touch coaching, who requires a medium touch coaching, and who requires a low touch coaching. So I think that's another interesting message, what is coming out of this statement, what is there. All right. So on that note, let us further move ahead and let us understand some very interesting definitions of coaching. Now, there are a lot of standard definitions of coaching which are available. But the statement which I make of coaching, this is a statement which I have created. Okay, this is what I would like to call coaching. Okay, or coach. Coach guides you to look at your own wristwatch. Okay, so as a coach, I don't have my own wristwatch. Incidentally, I'm not wearing a wristwatch right now. It's just by coincidence. Okay, yeah, a coach does not have his or her own wristwatch. A coach will guide your coachee to look at his or her wristwatch and identify what is the time. So many times coachee will come to you and ask you, okay, tell me what is the time. As a coach, I don't have answer to that. And that's a mistake which many people make. They think that a coach is like a god or more than a god, that a coach will have answers to all the problems. No, a coach will just help you to identify answers to your own problems using some of the very famous and infamous, if you say, coaching techniques which are there. A coach will never give you solution. I think that is the first and foremost fundamental thing I think everyone will have to understand, right? And many times people make this mistake, even leadership makes this mistake. They assume that as a leader, I have to provide solution to everything. No, I don't have to provide solution to everything. I have to enable or I have to facilitate the solution to come out by asking powerful questions, by asking probing questions, by asking deeply, I would say, entrenched question, which actually showcases a mirror to the coachee. My job as a coach is to show that mirror to the coachee and tell him or her, this is how you are looking right now. Do you like this appearance of yours, or would you like to change it? What is it that you would like to change it? Why are you looking like this? What is troubling you? I mean, these are some of the very, very powerful questions which a coach should be asking to his or her subjects or his or her coaches, right? Not the usual ones, right? Okay, tell me what is a problem. Tell me what is impacting you, and can I look into it? No, as a coach, I have to be completely hands off personality, what is there, right? At the same time, I have to keep an eye. It's like a lighthouse. It's like a lighthouse, what you see, right? I mean, a lighthouse will keep I mean, it is there to basically guide the ship which is there, right? And you can see a lighthouse from pretty far. So even if it is dark, ships are able to see a lighthouse. So that's the key message of coaching, which I wanted to give you. Of course, there is a standard definition of coaching, but before giving that standard definition of coaching, I thought I will try to give it in a very, very layman term, in a laymanish language, something which we all can easily decipher and understand that this is the definition of coaching. Of course, the standard definition of coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. It is helping them to learn rather than teaching them. There's a fundamental difference between coaching and teaching. Many of us in agile transformation think that if I've taken a 2-day agile class, or if I've taken a scrum master class, or if I train my team members in that class, I have done coaching. No, that is not coaching, that is teaching. There's a difference between teaching and coaching, and we will see that in subsequent slides. What is that difference all about between teaching and coaching? So we are coaching, we as coaches are coaching, we are not teaching our subjects, right, or our coaches or clients, as they say. And the focus on of coaching is not on past, it is about the today. What is the scene, right? How do I make my life, the life of my coachee much more better, right? Definitely I can see that my coachee is distressed, my coachee is having some issues. How do I ensure that issues are resolved by the coachee himself or herself? I will just facilitate. In other words, I will just help the coachee to learn skills to make his or her life better. So good coaches always believes that individual has got answers to their own problems. And believe me, it's very tricky when you're moving into an agile when you're moving into a coaching role for that matter. It is very tricky initial few days, because you are tempted to give into a solution. You know the solution and you are tempted to give that solution, right? And how do you basically come out of that mindset of not giving that solution, in spite of the fact that you know that this is the right answer and your coachee is going in the wrong direction? You have to pull that coachee back and put him or her back into the track of correct, where he or she will identify the correct answers themselves. Okay. And obviously, as a coach, it doesn't mean that I'm more knowledgeable than you. That is another myth which I wanted to shatter. As a coach, I might be less intelligent than you. Okay. But I will help you to find answers to the questions what you have. That is something which is very, very vital, and that is something which is very, very important. I mean, these are some of the tips, or these are some of the key elements from a coaching perspective, what we need to understand. And yes, as I said, right, I mean, it was a very difficult journey for me also initially, because I went into the habit of offering solutions, right? I mean, I was working in a traditional way of project management, and obviously team members used to come to me for answers, right, for solutions. And suddenly they found me that my behavior has changed when I moved into a coaching role, and they started asking me, what happened, are you leaving the organization? I mean, those kind of questions started coming to me, because you are not nowadays not answering our questions, you are not solving our problems. And it took basically a lot of time to actually convince them, to basically make them understand that why coaching is the need of the hour, or what is the motivation coaching gives me, and why coaching is best for you as an individual, why it is the best thing or the in thing for you. Fair enough. Let us move ahead. Now, obviously, everyone asks me, what are the key traits of a coach? There is this famous Lisa Atkins model of coaching. I'm not covering that. I think I did cover that in one of my earlier presentations. But today, I have tried to bring about my own perspective, my own thought process behind this coaching skills. And broadly speaking, I have divided them into two buckets, a soft skill and a hard skill. Now, this bucket looks almost equal, or rather it is equal. The two spherical balls, hemispherical balls, are almost similar in size, but in real world it may not be same. Okay, it is entirely a contextual, I would say, decision you have to take. How much focus you should put on soft skills, how much focus you should put on hard skills. I have seen coaches going in a skewed ratio also, 80% soft skill, 20% on the hard skills, or vice versa. And you will come to know what is a soft skill and a hard skill in a moment. So your soft skills are predominantly skills related to your personality, your social skills, right? One of the important things needed for a coach is you need to be a very good communicator. And by communicator, I don't mean talking in English. That is just one element of communication what we have. By communication, we mean that are we identifying and involving all the critical stakeholders in our engagement? Do we know who our customer is? Many of us don't even know who our customer is. And more importantly, are we keeping our stakeholders engaged? So it's no longer managing stakeholders, It's about engaging stakeholders. Now, why I'm stressing this is, I mean, when I go through resumes, right, I see these words that I'm managing stakeholders. That is a wrong word. If you are an agile coach, you won't be managing stakeholders. Believe me, that is a wrong choice of vocabulary. And obviously, you don't manage stakeholders. You engage your stakeholders. You keep them engaged into your engagement. Yeah, that's a little tongue twister, but you keep your stakeholders engaged. You don't manage stakeholders. If you are a coach, you should have a very strong EQ and of course IQ. IQ is intelligence quotient, but more than IQ nowadays, the focus is on emotional quotient, right? And again, I have done a detailed session on emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence all about? Why it is important? How to become an emotionally intelligent leader? EIL, right? Emotionally intelligent leader. And what are the myths related to emotional intelligence? For example, one very common myth I will tell you related to emotional intelligence. One very common myth related to emotional intelligence is that if I'm having very strong emotional quotient, I will never cry in life. That is a myth. That is not correct. Or I will never laugh in life. No, it is more about controlled emotions. How do you control these emotions at workplace? How do you control these emotions at your home? How do you control these emotions in society? That is what emotional intelligence or emotional quotient is all about. And it applies for both the situations. Okay. It's not just about angriness. It's also about how you react to a situation, right? And sometimes we see, right? I mean, people start loudly laughing in the middle of a conversation. That also displays a kind of a lack of emotional quotient. So that is something which is very much needed for a coach, because if you're not emotionally strong, how can you expect your team to be emotionally strong, the team which you're coaching, right? If you're going to coach them to become emotionally strong, you yourself have to be having that strong emotional quotient or the emotional intelligence with you. Right attitude, obviously, needless to say that a very, very positive attitude. You need to have a growth mindset over a fixed mindset. Again, I have talked about it multiple times in previous sessions, right? How to have a positive outlook rather than a negative outlook, right? Abundance mindset over scarcity mindset, and awareness about what's happening in the coaching engagement, right? Many of us be a good listener. I mean, that is what I am saying. Awareness also indicates that you have to be a good listener rather than a good speaker. So one element of communication skills required for a coach also includes good listening skills over your talking skills or your verbal skills which are there. So that is the second set of pairs what are there. The third and third set of pairs are the right mindset and the culture, right? We have to bring about a coaching mindset in ourselves first. Only if we bring about that coaching mindset, we can expect others to imbibe that. And we have to build the right culture, right? The right coaching culture is what needs to be built in. Many times organizations fail, and then the easiest scapegoat is our transformation failed because it doesn't work for us. The problem is related to culture, as Peter Drucker rightly said, right? What did he say? If you remember the quote, a very famous quote: culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? Culture eats strategy for breakfast is what Peter Drucker said, right? I mean, however good strategy you make, ultimately culture is going to eat it, right? The culture is going to consume it. So build the culture, make sure that you have the culture of a coaching imbibed in your organization, and try to adhere with it. So these are I would say some of the soft skills which are required. Okay, these are some of the, I would say, and very, very essential skills. Okay, I would say these are very essential skills which are needed for a coach to I mean, for you to transform yourself from a traditional I would say mindset to a coaching mindset. These are some of the very, very important skill sets which are needed. Okay, then there's also hard skills, your domain skills. This question also I get always asked, right? I mean, how when you change a coaching engagement, so earlier you were working in a banking client, now you are working with, let us say, telecom. Now tomorrow you might be working with the semiconductor industry, maybe airline industry as a coach. Do you really need to understand the domain? My answer to that would be yes, you should be aware, at least the basic part of it. I'm not saying that you should be aware what a product owner should be aware of, but at least some key terminology, some key guidelines, some key challenges of that industry It is always important to know that. In fact, the first few days of a coaching engagement, you should be spending with product owners and trying to understand what is this product all about, what problem this product is trying to solve, what is a product goal or what is a product roadmap, do we have it, and what is the overarching vision of this product goal, what is there. So understand the product, understand the domain, because this is where you are going to coach. Okay, obviously people know that you are not an expert in that domain, but it is always better to understand more about the product and the domain in which you're working. In fact, I would recommend at the time of interview also, right? In case you know that, okay, this is a domain on which you're working, try to do some homework about that domain, right? And there are a lot of sources available on Google where you can search about that domain, where you can search about that organization, and you can try to figure out what is a key point of that organization, what is a key thing which this organization is into, right? So that is what you will have to do it, right? I mean, those are the things what you will have to do it as a part of this domain, what is there, right? Having a strong domain knowledge is also something which is very, very vital and important. Of course, the process side of things, I mean, what are the processes which are there, right? How exactly do we do the processes? And the technical agility element. Again, this is a question which I always get asked, that do we need to understand DevOps? I would say some element of it is required, right? If not all, at least the some element of DevOps is something which is definitely needed. You should be aware about the branching and merging strategy. What is the branching and merging strategy? What you will be following, or what your team would be following. So that is one more thing what would be needed. And of course, what is the tooling landscape, right? What kind of a tooling landscape are you using, right? So all those things is something what you will need to understand from a process side of things, from a technical agile practices or technical agility point of view. And last but not the least, tools and techniques. But those are very, very minimal. Okay. And again, by tools, I don't just mean Jira. Okay. So don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about Jira here. There are so many other tools available in coaching which you have to learn over a period of time. And I have covered them separately in a video. If you look at my channel, you will see the video of that. So there's a coaching canvas. There is a coaching wheel of change. There are those coaching models like Grow model of coaching, Oscar model of coaching. So those are the things what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about Jira, Rally or version 1 here. That is definitely there. But more than that, it is about the coaching tools which will help you to capture the responses, which will help you to digitize how the coachee is transitioning and transforming into his or her new role, right? So those are the tools and techniques which are needed. So I would say, as a coach, these are some of the traits, or these are some of the key elements of what you should be having, or you should be creating over a period of time. Okay, fine. So let us move ahead. Can I become a coach? I think that is a question which everyone has. And here I have tried to depict what changes you need to bring about in yourself if you're working in a core project managerial role into an agile role, right? So one of the major fundamental shift what you have to do is you have to move away from measuring output to measuring outcomes. That is something very, very important. Okay, that's something which you have to do it, right? And I'll give an example. What is an output? What is an outcome? Okay, for example, I decide to reduce sugar daily. I say that I'm not going to have sugar in my coffee daily. So and I broadcast it in my entire house. I tell them that, you know what, from tomorrow onwards, for next 15 days, I'm not going to have sugar at all for next 15 days. And I follow it. I rigorously follow it, which is there. But what happens is, after 15 days, what has happened is that I'm feeling tired. Okay, I'm getting to feel tired. And as a result, what is happening is I'm not doing my work which I'm supposed to do effectively. So what is the use of measuring output here, right? I mean, yes, from an output perspective, I'm doing good. I've reduced sugar. But outcome is actually a negative outcome, right? And my productivity has reduced, right? As they say, operation successful, patient dead, a classic example of this. Or let us say I decide that, you know what, I will exercise daily 1 hour. I will do stretching exercise 1 hour daily. And I do it rigorously. I do the stretching exercise rigorously for 1 hour daily. But At the end of this measurement period, I find that my weight has hardly reduced by 200 grams. So there's no outcome there. So basically something wrong has happened. I might have done exercise, but what would have happened is, because I would have lost energy, I would have consumed more food, right? So basically that's the measurement what you need to do. You have to move away from an output based measurement into an outcome based measurement. One classic example: velocity is an output based measurement. It is not an outcome based measurement. Just to tell you, okay, I know many people would be sad on hearing this, but velocity is not an outcome based measurement. It's an output based measurement. And many of us make that mistake of saying that my velocity of the team has increased. That doesn't make sense anything. Okay, you're just trying to cheat yourself if you're saying that the velocity of my team is increasing. How much business value have they delivered? How much is the feature predictability? That is an outcome based measurement what is there. So that is one shift what you need to bring about. In a traditional role, I'm normally a person who maintains all the records. I'm more like a record keeper, or more like a scribe job, which also I have to do apart from managing the project. Here, my role is more of an impediment remover, right? Removing blockers, facilitating key events, facilitating interaction between stakeholders. So that is where my role of a coach comes into handy here, right? So from a record keeper to a facilitator. That's the model which I'm talking about. Third one, I think pretty obvious: from a command and control leadership style to a shepherding or a servant leadership style, right? A servant leader is a leader who works for the benefit of the team, right? And we have a lot of examples of in the corporate world, I'm saying, not just the political world. In the corporate world, we have a lot of examples of servant leadership, and how servant leadership has created a culture of delegation in the team, in the organizations, right? So that is the leadership style what we would like to imbibe, right? From a traditional command and control leadership style to a servant leadership style what is there. And yeah, last but definitely not the least, there are more elements to it, not just this one. Is what matters is long-term goals, right? Yes, short-term goals are there, but in a traditional project, what we tend to do is we tend to focus the team on too much of deliverables, right? I mean, we say that yes, you have to produce this deliverable by so and so date, right? That is what we tell, right? Whereas we actually ignore the business outcomes. We actually ignore what are the business outcomes which are there. So how do we move away from basically an output driven model to an outcome based or an outcome driven model what is there, right? So that is something of what we need to understand, or those are some of the, I would say, some of the key elements which are there, right? Some of the key elements of what we have as a part of this journey what is there. And remember, it's a journey. Okay, it's a journey at the end of the day. All right, so let me ask you a question here. So what do you think, is the role of a coach permanent, or is the role of a coach temporary? I think one of the interview questions which is asked, I think many of you would have faced this question. What do you think, is the role of a coach, is it a permanent role or is it a temporary role? Maybe for 2 or 3 months, and then the coach goes away, someone else basically picks up that. What do you think? Any thoughts on this? Anyone wants to speak, you can raise hand, and I'll give you an opportunity to unmute your mic, especially for people who are on Zoom meeting. Any thoughts on this? Is it a permanent role? Is it a temporary role? Or what do you think? And the same thing, by the way, applies for Scrum Master also, because Scrum Master is a coach to the team. Always remember that. As a Scrum Master, you are a coach. Remember that, right? So obviously, what I say for an agile coach, the same thing will work for a, I would say, for a Scrum Master also. Yeah, any thoughts on this? Anyone? I'll just wait for a few seconds before I share my thoughts. There is no right or a wrong answer for this, to be very honest. But I would definitely like to share my thoughts on this. That is this role a temporary role, or is this role a permanent role? What is there? What do you think? Anyone would like to answer that? Permanent. Okay. So we are getting one answer as permanent. How about others? Who wants to speak? Okay, Ranjan wants to speak. Ranjan, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, I think it's a like a temporary role for a certain period of time for a team, because because what is happening for a 6 months duration or maybe a 1 year duration, what the coach going to do, and after the coaching and all everything has been done, and after the assignment has been over, probably that point of time there is less interactions or the coach roles has been limited. So might be in a big organization where a coach is being involved more, and after the project has been over and all, that point of time they can go and they can check for that one other projects and all.
Okay, fair enough. So thanks for your opinion. Okay, then I'm getting another one: permanent, semi-permanent. Okay, so I think please read the question carefully. The question says, is the role of a coach permanent or temporary? My thoughts on this, my 2 cents on this, basically. Okay, I think two more participants have raised hand. Yeah, Meet, I think Sumit, I think, go ahead and speak.
Thank you, Ashutosh. So, as you only mentioned, right, that the with the coaching prospect, the idea is to get the best or unlock the best potential of the coachee, and the eventual goal for us also would be to make someone independent, right? So that's why I think that this position, according to
I
me,
think
would
I
be
lost you in
semi
between. I don't. Okay, independent. Okay.
independent. Yeah, that's
Independent.
why
Someone
I say
independent. Okay. Someone you have to
temporary.
put forward and then. Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sumit. I think your voice was breaking, but I could hear. But I could hear what you're trying to tell. Okay. Now, I'm going to make a very interesting statement here. Okay. And yeah, you may agree with that statement. You might, you have an opinion to disagree with that statement. I would say Mr. or Mrs. Coach as a person is temporary in an engagement. Okay, so whether you are Mrs. Coach or Mr. Coach in an engagement, the coach role is temporary, but coaching is permanent. I always say this. Coaching has to be permanent. You cannot say that I don't need coaching. The best of the best leaders in this world need coaching, whether it is CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, whether it is head of states of countries across the world, they need coaches. Believe me. Okay, they have coaches. Probably we don't know who their coaches are. That emerges at a later point in time that, oh, this was a coach to this person. Big industrialists have got coaches with them. In fact, the other day I came to know, and I'm not going to quote the names here, Bollywood celebrities have got coaches with them, with the kind of stress they undergo, right? And you know, right, what kind of stress Bollywood celebrities go through, right? There's a social media pressure. There's a pressure of your movies which have to be hit. At the same time, the content should be acceptable to people. There should not be any controversy, right? So Bollywood celebrities have got a coach with them. Okay, so definitely coach is temporary role. The role is temporary, but coaching is permanent. So many times today also, I get calls from my ex team that, can you come and be with us for 1 or 2 days? Okay, we are inviting you. Okay, can you be, if you're available, can you please come, or let us know your availability and we would like to have you here, right? So many times I do get those short I would say gigs, just to visit the team for 2 days, just see what's happening. And as Sumit rightly mentioned, right, as a coach, it is your responsibility to make sure that when you're exiting a coaching engagement, you have someone who's going to play that hat of a coach. As I said, you as a coach are exiting that, but coaching is not stopping in the team. Coaching has to continue in the team. It is a continuous improvement, as we say, right? I cannot say that my team has become the world's best team in the world, right? It is a journey at the end of the day, and you need a coach who will nudge the team, who will challenge the team, who will make sure that the team learns how to look at its own wristwatch and look at the time and find out what time of the day it is, right? So yes, the role of the coach is temporary, but coaching per se is a permanent activity, what we do. And even as parents, we have to remember this. This applies to we as parents also, okay, that coaching is always permanent, howsoever big or small your kid is, whether your kid is 5 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old, teenager, or even let's say 40 years old and you are 80. I think coaching is something which is there, right? I mean, the roles might change, but coaching is something which is bound to be there. Fair enough. Let us move ahead. Now coming to that classic difference between coaching, mentoring, and training, right? And as promised right in the beginning that I will talk about it. So because this is a very, very confusing area. Many people think that, as I said, if I take a 2-day agile program, I'm doing coaching. No, that is training. In training, the assumption is that I know more than my students, which is not the assumption in coaching, by the way. Okay, in coaching, there could very well be possibility that my coachee knows more than me. Okay, but in training, I would be thrown out of the classroom if my students know more than me, right? I mean, then why do they need a teacher, right? The teacher is there like an expert who will bring and impart knowledge to his or her subject. So that is a definition of training, what we call. What is mentoring? Let us try to understand this. Mentoring is something very, very interesting. Okay, and mentoring is could be a long-term association what you have. And interestingly, the mentor could be or could not be from the same field in which you are working. So I'll give a very interesting example of mentoring. And this is something which we all Indians at least have seen this. And we have observed this. So whenever there is an India-Australia match, right, or for that matter, India-Pakistan match on cricket, you always know, right, there's a high tension which gets built up, right? And there's a lot of media frenzy which happens 2 or 3 days before the match, right? They try to show what the players are doing, where the players are meeting. They try to show as if everything is normal, but we know that everything is not normal, right? It's a high pitch encounter which is going to happen, right? Whether it's India Australia or whether it's India Pakistan, as I said. And in one of the matches, when this was a very, very high pitch encounter which was happening, I saw a very interesting picture which came in the newspaper. This picture was of, I think if I remember correctly, it was of, I think, Sunil Gavaskar giving batting tips to Mahendra Singh Dhoni. And by the way, Sunil Gavaskar was not a coach for the team. Okay, the coach was someone else for that match. Okay, now that is a role of a mentor, I would say. Okay, a mentor is someone who will give the guidance. Okay, so guiding someone to learn or develop faster than they might do alone. So considering the fact that we just have 2 days for this high pitch match to come in, here we have a mentor in form of Sunil Gavaskar who is giving some tips to Mahendra Singh Dhoni in the ground during their net practice. I'm talking about net practice before the match, not in the actual match. Okay, so that might be called as a mentorship. Okay, so everyone should be having a mentor. If you're not having a mentor, I would strongly recommend that have a mentor. Okay, and mentor can be anyone. It can be anyone in your family. It can be anyone of your friends whom you respect, whom you trust. I think that, and a mentor is someone, like I can give my example. I go to a mentor even to my personal decisions, whether should I buy this house, not buy this house, which car should I buy. I mean, that is my personal choice, but I go to a mentor for that also, right? Because I consider him to give me that information faster than, not that I cannot extract that information, but that person will be able to extract that information much more faster. Okay, what is counseling? And counseling is a technique which is used to diagnose and solve a problem. So we all know there are a lot of counselors available. There are career counselors available. There are marriage counselors available, right? We know that, right? So whenever there's a problem in marriage, we have seen couples going to a marriage counselor and discussing what is a problem with them. And the counselor is trying to basically broker a peace between the two warring parties before it turns ugly into a divorce or those kind of situation. So that is what is called as counseling. By the way, as coaches, we might have to use counseling also many times. I'm not talking about solving personal problems of your coaches, but even in your transformation, you do get use cases of counseling that need not always be a mentoring or a coaching use case. There could be a situation where the coachee is having some major issues and the coachee expects you to be more like a counselor than a coach. Okay, so there are situations, I'm talking about work related situations. I'm not saying that you as a coach have to go into their personal life. I mean, that obviously I can't go, right? So that is what is called as counseling. And last but not the least, we already discussed about the basic definition of coaching, that the individual has got answers to his or her own problem. Perfect. So let us now see what is the story of coaching. Let us try to understand what is the story of coaching. And is it my story of coaching? Well, no, it is not my story of coaching which I'm going to discuss. It is something else. It is something interesting, a thing which I have crafted, and let me bring it up for you. Yeah, the story of coaching. So what should each story, believe me, each of us who are there in this call, each of us who are there on LinkedIn will have a unique story of coaching. My story of coaching is this: S for skills. You should have the right set of skills which are required. T for transformation. Okay, and not transition. There's a difference between transformation and transition, by the way. Okay. O for objective. Have clear, focused objective in mind. Where do you see yourself as a coach? Then R for obviously results. I should be getting results out of my coaching engagement. And last but not the least, why? Any guesses why? Y is basically for yield, outcome over output, right? I mean, a farmer at the end of the year has to produce a yield. It's not just crops which a farmer produces. Yes, crops will be produced and sold in the marketplace. But what is important is what is the yield, right? How much I have improved the yield per acre. That's one of the metrics they measure, right? Similarly, how as a coach I have improved my yield. How much is my run rate, right? Have I improved my run rate and delivery? That is what we talk in terms of yield. What is there? So skills, we need to, as I said, incorporate coaching skills over commandeering skills. We need to incorporate transformation skills over transition skills. What is the difference between transformation and transition? 1 + 1 greater than 3 is transformation. 1 + 1 equals to 2 is transition. The sum of effects is greater. It has a compounding effect. That is what we call it as transformation. Objective over output, I already talked, or operations as they say, right? And result over resources. It doesn't matter how many resources you have. At the end of the day, have you got an outcome? Have you done an outcome-based delivery? What is there? And last but not the least, yield over output, right? So that's my story. That's my story of agile coaching, exemplified through these examples, exemplified through this journey which I've undertaken over the years. It's been a really wonderful, exciting journey, and the hunger still is there. Okay, it's not that I'm saying that, oh, now I'm tired of agile coaching. No, I mean, there's still a lot of learning. Every Monday morning when I go back to my coaching engagement, there is still a lot of learning. Every Friday evening, I'm still enriched with a lot of, I would say, pieces of information, pearls of wisdom, which I get from people around me. So that, in a nutshell, is my story of coaching. I'm sure each one of us has got a unique story of his or her coaching journey. Try to one day sit and encapsulate that story. It can be through visual thinking. It can be on a piece of paper. You can write it down if you have good writing skills. I'm sure you will see a lot of interesting you'll see a lot of interesting things coming out of it. You'll see a lot of interesting remembrances, how that coaching transformation was. So on that note, I pause my session here. I'm opening the floor for any questions, if there are any questions. Meanwhile, if you are not connected with me, feel free to connect with me on my YouTube channel. As I said, I have now almost 150 plus videos. We are shooting more and more videos as we move along. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll be more than happy to talk about anything about it, anything related to your journey, your story. And yeah, on that note, I think we are good to open the floor for questions if there are any questions. And yeah, I would advise, if you're okay, you can come on camera also, so that we can see each other. I always believe in a face-to-face interaction, right? And face-to-face interaction, as we say, is the best form of interaction, we say. And this, of course, is for Zoom people who are on Zoom. If you can come on camera, that would really be great. But yeah, I'm opening the floor for questions. So anyone has any questions, you can raise hand, and I will unmute that person, and we can then, I'll try to answer. Okay, not that I will have answer to that question, but I'll try to answer that question which you have. Yeah, anyone, any questions or any thoughts on this? Can you please share a few coaching tools? I've already covered a session on that. You can go through the recording. Okay, I already have 2-3 sessions on coaching tools like Coaching Wheel of Change, Johari Window. If you search these 2 videos, there's a detailed 45, in fact, there's a 1-hour coaching session which I have recorded and I have uploaded it on the YouTube. But yeah, these are some of the coaching tools which are there, as I said, right? The Coaching Wheel of Change and all. Yeah, okay, Srini has a question. Yeah, Srini, go ahead. You can speak now.
Thanks, Ashutosh, for giving me an opportunity.
Srini, you have a question?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes. I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. My question is, in the industry, I'm just talking to
Hello, go
you.
ahead. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah. Are you able to hear me properly?
Uh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Otherwise, I have to come on the headset. I'm not in the headset. Okay. So my question is, DevOps coach and technical coach, what is your point of view on this? It's being asked in the industry widely, right? These days, DevOps coach or technical coach. What is your point of view?
Hmm. So definitely, yes. I mean, they're extending this coaching, I would say, to more into a technical coaching side. And to be very honest, I see nothing wrong with that, right? Because as I said, right, coaching is something which has to be imbibed across all the layers. We are expecting CEOs to be the coach. Now, we say that CEOs have to behave like coaches nowadays. So I don't see per se, my opinion is per se nothing wrong in having that role. But the challenge, what I see is that role is not clearly defined. You can't hire a DevOps coach and expect him or her to be an architect. Okay, architect is different, DevOps coach is a different role. But unfortunately, what I have seen is the title is DevOps coach, but if you scroll down through the JD, it is more of a system architect or a solution architect role, what is there. So that is something which should be avoided, I would say. But per se, there is nothing wrong in having a DevOps coach role. I hope I answered your question. Okay. Any other question anyone has? Yeah, and I see a lot of questions on LinkedIn Live. Yeah, so do connect with me, and I will respond back to your questions. Because obviously you people on LinkedIn Live or Facebook cannot talk, but you can just hear me. It's a one-way traffic, what is there. But do respond. I will definitely respond back to the questions what you have, and we can discuss further. Okay, any other question before we finally wrap up? I know it's Friday. I don't want to come between you and your Friday weekend, but any other question? Okay, Hemant has a question. Let me unmute him, Hemant. Yeah, Hemant, go ahead.
Can you hear me, Ashutosh?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, hello, Ashutosh. Nice session. Though I joined a little late, but my question is regarding consulting versus coaching. How do you see the difference between these two when it comes to the agile coaching space? How that consulting and coaching come together, or difference?
So basically, in an agile coaching world, lines are blurred, I would say. I mean, they expect you to be a more like a consultant and a coach. But see, the same difference, right? As a consultant, they expect you to provide a solution. I mean, that's a general norm that, okay, if you're a consultant, you need to provide a solution to my problem, right? I cannot exit a consulting engagement without having solved the customer's problem. Whereas in an agile coach, it is all about facilitating and coaching and help the team identify the answer. Now, if I look from the other side, let me turn the tables around. If I'm hiring a consultant, let's say I'm a business owner, I decide to invest in hiring a consultant. And if the consultant behaves like a coach, right? Imagine how I will think. I will think that, oh, he's charging me money, but he's not giving me solution, right? So yes, that dichotomy is there, that confusion is there, that gray area is there. And yes, I mean, that requires a lot of, I would say, education or competency building to a stakeholder point of view. So yes, that is how I would answer that question. But yes, coming back to your question, unfortunately, in the industry from an agile coaching perspective, the lines are blurred, I would say, between consultants and coaches. They're very much very closely integrated or blurred with each other. I hope I answered your question, and yeah, you can unmute yourself. I think. Wait a minute. You can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Ashutosh. I think, yeah, that answer my question. Yeah, it is a little blurry, is what I was also thinking.
Okay. Sure. Thanks. And thanks for coming on camera. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions anyone has, or any other thoughts? Anyone has on this? Okay, fine, fair enough. Okay, so okay, then I think then we are good to close this session. I hope you had a worth investment of your time, right? It's Friday evening, I know, and yet you chose to be with me for last 45-50 minutes. So thanks a lot. Really appreciate your thoughts, your feedback. And yeah, continue watching this space. There are more sessions coming up, more interesting speakers, more different perspectives coming up in coming few weeks. So on that note, thank you very much. Thanks all, and have a happy weekend to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah.